This is Baruch, your lift manager here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. We're going to try to get off here on the ultimate connection with God, bring it in by Rabbi Yosef Chaim Mimran. We've been looking at this book. There's a lot of tremendous ideas in it. It's going to get deeper as we go along. What Rabbi Mimran is trying to do is prepare our minds to understand what is going on in our minds, where our position is in reality and in relationship to thinking. So here we go, back over here where we're at now. We're going to go to the concept that he says the art of acceptance. See how this goes. But our learning is a little bit longer today. So here was an idea that he said yesterday, and let's lead into the next one. He was saying that the ego feeds off of pain and trouble because the ego is based on a defensive mind, trying to promote the needs of the body. Fortunately, the needs of the body are temporal. We don't live that long. And those fools who think it's so important for them to gain great wealth or great power, and that's all there is to their lives, because it could cause a tremendous amount of problems. Because this is all temporary. Things come and go. I was reading about Ulysses S. Grant. So Ulysses S. Grant, I really admire this person. He really won the Civil War as a general. And there was a picture of him when the first battles that he won were Fort Donelson and Fort Henry, which is somewhere near where I was born, and it's really south of St. Louis. So he smoked cigars, and there's a picture of him that got into the paper with him holding a cigar. And then people started sending him cigars, thousands and thousands and thousands of cigars. And eventually, of course, he won the war, and the cigar was a major part of it. And then he became president of the United States 2 terms. And ultimately, he died what? He died of throat cancer. So the cigars contributed, I think we could say, to something that killed him in the end. Even though he's a great victory, that he was a great general and he created so much. But at the same time, all of the people that died in that war, well, they waited for him to die 20 years later, because that's what happens to all of us. The problem is that is the thinking mind. The thinking mind is concerned about that. It tries to protect itself. So he writes, pain cannot feed on joy. It finds joy to be altogether indigestible. So therefore, we see that the thinking mind, the ego, really needs conflict and pain. Now let's come over here to the next one. The next one, I went to do with my pencil. Here we go. The next one is called the art of acceptance. So he said, this is a quote from the Chassid Yavutz. He says, this we learn from a saving from Moshe Rabbeinu, and choose life. The Pasuk is warning us to choose life for ourselves, which is the Vekas with Hashem, since He is the source of life. And that's what I was trying to get at. Is as if we choose this world, and even if we're victorious in this world, when you're gone, and it's only temporary. He writes like this: the ego, and he says the ego is the same thing as Yetzer Hara. It's very cunning. So we have to be very alert, very aware, and totally honest with yourself to see whether you have truly relinquished your identification with mental positioning and so freed yourself from your egoic mind. If you will suddenly feel very light, clear, and deeply at peace, that is an unmistakable sign that you have truly surrendered and connected to your highest self. Then observe what happens to the other person's mental position as you no longer energize it through resistance. Now, this other person, I'm not sure what he means. When identification with mental position is out of the way, true communications begin. Now, he's brought in this idea of what he calls mental positions. I'm not sure exactly what that means, so let's read on. So he says again, non-resistance and acceptance doesn't necessarily mean doing nothing. All it means is that any doing is totally monitored and controlled with intelligence, as opposed to irrational and spontaneous reactions and retaliations, which are all based on emotion. Actually, the wisdom underlying the practice of Eastern martial arts is not to resist, to not resist the opponent's force, but to yield to overcome, In other words, let it come at you and then you find a way to get out. This is the art of acceptance. Moreover, doing nothing when you are in a state of alert awareness is a very powerful transformer and healer of situations and people. You are actually creating healing through passivity. It is radically different from inactivity in the ordinary state of consciousness, or rather unconsciousness, which stems from fear, laziness, or indecision. The real doing nothing implies inner non resistance and intense alertness. Now, I'm trying to understand how this works for me. So I just want to see, he's saying, I'm not sure. Let's read on. If actions are required, you will no longer react from your conditioned mind. That's what he's talking about, the positions of your mind. But you will respond to the situation via your inner intuitive soul presence, which is your soul's intelligence. Now, how do you get there? The ego believes that in your resistance lies your strength. That's what it means. So it fights. Whereas in truth, resistance and rash retaliations cuts you off from your true power. As stated in the timeless teaching of our sages in Pirkei Avot, who is he who is strong? One who conquers his Yetzer Hara, that is the egoic self. Resistance is weakness and fear masquerading as strength. So he says the resistance, which we have the arguments and the fighting over different ideas or different things that impact you, use losing your temper and so on and forth, is really a weakness. And fear masquerading as strength. What the ego sees as weakness is your true self in its purity, innocence, holiness, and power. What it sees as strength is weakness. So the ego exists in a continuous resistance mode and plays counterfeit roles to cover up your weakness, which in truth is your power. Now, there's a lot in that, and I really have to think about it. We'll see what I think tomorrow after I digest it a little bit. Until there is acceptance and alert awareness. So he says that the difficulties in life are something you have to accept and try to put this together. And as you accept them and you're able to look at them and what's going on, it brings you into a state, he's saying, of alert awareness. Unconscious role playing constitutes a large part of human interaction. So now, once again, I don't know which is which. First, he has the idea of acceptance and alert awareness, and then he has the concept of role playing, which I thought is what he meant the conditioned responses, but I'm not sure. In acceptance to what it is, you no longer need ego defenses and false masks. You don't have to pretend who you are. You become very simple, very real. That's dangerous, says the ego. You will get hurt. You'll become vulnerable. So, what the ego doesn't want you to be hurt, he doesn't want your feelings hurt. He doesn't want your job to be hurt. He wasn't done. So, all of these kinds of different kinds of defensive moves. What the ego doesn't know, of course, is that only through the letting go of resistance, through becoming vulnerable, can you discover your essential invulnerability and ultimately your true connection with your Creator. So he writes in his blurb, he says, resistance is weakness and fear masquerading as strength. So there are accusations and there is resistance to the accusations. And that's the posturing, he says, of the ego. This is Baruch Fleischman trying to understand and work with this tremendous book, The Ultimate Connection with God by Rabbi Yosef Chaim Mimran.